Namaskar and welcome to all for this our first session of Heritage of Interior Design in Ancient India। मैं आप सभी का हमारे इस नए कोर्स में स्वागत करता हूं और हमारे कोर्स की जो गाइड है, हमारे जो रिसोर्स पर्सन है सुचिता कामत मैडम, मैं उनका भी यहाँ स्वागत करता हूं। मैंने जैसे सभी को रिक्वेस्ट किया था कि कृपया अपना साउंड जो है वो सभी म्यूट रखें। अगर कोई भी एक व्यक्ति बात कर रहा है तो हम सभी अपना साउंड जो है म्यूट रखें। कुछ भी अगर सवाल पूछना हो तो हम लास्ट में या तो हमारे चैट बॉक्स में हम सवाल लिखेंगे या फिर लास्ट में हम पूछेंगे। मैं पहले हमारे जो रिसोर्स पर्सन है सुचिता कामत मैडम, मैं उनका परिचय यहाँ पर देना उचित समझूंगा। वैसे तो काफी सारे लोग हमारे जो 1 ईयर का जो कोर्स है आर्ट एंड आर्किटेक्चरल हेरिटेज ऑफ इंडिया, उसमें से कई सारे लोग यहाँ पर उपस्थित है, हमारे सारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स और कुछ हमारे जो दूसरे कोर्सेस है। दिस इज आवर 30th कोर्स, यानी ये हमारा 30, अभी तक 29 कोर्सेस हमारे कंप्लीट हुए। ये 13th कोर्स हमारा अभी चल रहा है। यहाँ सुचिता कामत मैडम जो है उन्होंने अपनी शिक्षा जो है वो ग्रेजुएशन उन्होंने साइंस में कंप्लीट किया हुआ है मुंबई यूनिवर्सिटी से। उसके बाद उन्होंने अपना इंटीरियर डिजाइन की जो शिक्षा है वो उन्होंने एकेडमी ऑफ अप्लाइड आर्ट दादर मुंबई से पूरी की है। फिर उसके बाद उन्होंने अपनी पोस्ट ग्रेजुएट की जो शिक्षा है कंटेम्पररी मैथोलॉजी के बारे में वो मुंबई यूनिवर्सिटी से पूरी की। और उसके बाद फिर उन्होंने संस्कृत में भी शिक्षा ली है मुंबई यूनिवर्सिटी से ही। तो ये मल्टी डाइवर्स अप्रोच जो है, यानी अलग अलग इसमें शिक्षा लेकर के आज का हमारा ये जो टॉपिक है, एक्चुअली इसके बारे में हमारा जो 1 ईयर कोर्स है उसमें एक सेशन उन्होंने पहले लिया था और कई सारे स्कॉलर्स ने जो मैसेज किया था, कमेंट बॉक्स में लिखा था, व्हाट्सएप में भी हमारे मैसेज किया था कि कृपया इसके बारे में एक कोर्स आप आयोजित कीजिए ताकि हम लोगों को सारी जानकारी डिटेल में प्राप्त हो सके। तो ये सभी स्कॉलर को ध्यान रखते हुए हमने इस कोर्स को डिजाइन किया है। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद मैडम, मैं आपका पहले तो शुक्रिया अदा करता हूं कि आपने समय निकाल करके, क्योंकि कोई भी बात बोलना बहुत आसान है बट उसका पूरा जो है हम सभी को अच्छी तरह से समझ में आए, इस तरह से उसे प्रेजेंट करना ये बड़ी मुश्किल बात होती है। फिर भी आपने हमारी विनती को स्वीकार किया और आप यहाँ पर हमारे लिए उपस्थित रहे, इसलिए आपका बहुत शुक्रिया। एंड नाउ आई रिक्वेस्ट टू यू फॉर टू स्टार्ट आवर टुडे सेशन।
Good evening, all, and thank you, sir. Pujam Bobde sir has been a great source of inspiration for me, and I have learned a lot from him. And I hope everyone enjoys these sessions. I hope, like any issues, I will address them to the best of my knowledge. I might fall short, so please excuse me.
एक्सक्यूज मी सर।
ये हमारा पूरा कोर्स जो है ये हिंदी और इंग्लिश दोनों में होगा। जहां पर भी आपको कुछ समस्या लगेगी आप लास्ट में पूछ सकेंगे। हाँ वैशाली मैडम।
सर can you use the headphones because voice is echoing, we can't hear it clearly.
नो हियर एवरीथिंग इज क्लियर। हम लोगों को अच्छे से क्लियर सुनाई दे रहा है, सो नो प्रॉब्लम। आप एक बार लेफ्ट होकर के फिर इन हो जाइए, बाकी हम लोगों का आवाज क्लियर आ रही है। यस यू कैन प्रोसीड मैडम प्लीज।
Yes. So we start with our first day of Heritage of Interior Designing in Ancient India in the perspective of mythology. So today, since it is day one, we will be studying about a need for interior decoration for everyone, how man started building shelters and homes, ancient cave shelters of India, rock paintings of Bhimbetka, houses and cities of Indus Valley civilization, their furniture and other aspects of interior design, ancient references of art of construction and decoration of Vedic and post-Vedic period, ancient palaces and palaces of Chandragupta Maurya and Harshavardhan. Need for interior decoration for every person. Beauty adds grace and peace to the house. No matter how small or big the house may be, it is the only place which we try to make as comfortable and appealing as we can. Interior design is defined as the art and science of enhancing the interior of a space in order to create a polished and more aesthetically pleasing environment. An interior designer, someone trained to execute plans, research, coordinate, and manage decoration projects with authority. The profession of interior design is varied and includes space planning, concept development, site inspections, creating a design which will be workable, efficient, and to the liking of the client. Now, it is very important that whatever decoration is done or designing is done, that is appealing to the people who live in that space or who are working in that space. So, from that point of view, interior designing plays a great role. Climate and geography of a place influence the structure and shapes of buildings, and also the building materials used are dependent on these natural factors. With his intelligence, observation, and imitation of nature, man has not only been able to survive, but also has been successful in taming other creatures. So, this is of the period when man started his progress many years back. And with the help of these creatures, he started making his life better and learning more things. From nests and shelters of birds and animals, humans learned the art of making shelters for themselves. Early humans wandered from place to place in search of food. This is probably when the need for community living was learned by humans. So, since a single person cannot learn things on his own, he has to have somebody with him to teach him. And man has always been imitating nature. So from nature and from the surroundings, from the other animals and plants also, man has learnt a lot. How man started building shelters and homes. Now, when man was nomadic, wandering from one place to another in search, and that time, since the only need was food, so he started moving from one place to another and started migrating. After the food was over in one area or the conditions were not suitable, he would start migrating from one place to another. And in that course of time, man started living in cave shelters. So that was for protection from the wild animals. Later started constructing shelters from plant fibers, straw, mud, sticks, stones, and animal skins. Because we all know that early man did not, when fabric was not manufactured, animal skins were used by man as clothing. Natural materials are great insulators, less polluting, and cheap building materials. But in present times, due to the scarcity of construction space, their use is not popular as the structures constructed from natural materials are high maintenance and bulky. So we prefer synthesized building materials, because these building materials of the present times are very help to create compact structures and give strength to the structure using lesser material. But then there is one disadvantage, that these degrade fast since they are chemically processed. So because there is a reaction of the elements of nature or the chemicals themselves, so the degradation takes place faster. Interior designing and home beautification have been used and have developed as humans started using shelters. Beauty and creativity has been a part of life of humans ever since use of caves for shelter. The art of interior designing has gained popularity over the past few decades, and most of us have heard about it. But then, if we consider the dynamic and ancient cultural background of India, one will wonder if interior designing is practiced here or is it purely modern Western concept? Because most of us, rather at least I did not have a great idea about like how ancient our if in the interior design in India must have been. Means like through the books and through whatever matter, whatever reading material, we get some idea, but like that detail is not really available. And most of the people feel that since India has a very traditional background, so people did not use furniture at all. They just had very simple basic needs, and their houses were very plain and nothing really much was there. But is that really true? So the ancient cave shelters in India. So like to know about this, let us study the ancient cave shelters in India and how was there any decoration used there. So in ancient Paleolithic cave paintings are found in the states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, and Odisha. Though undated, these paintings could be about 30,000 to 10,000 years old, as they use similar art form of Bhimbetka cave shelters in Bhopal. In Karnataka, cave paintings are found near Badami. Odisha has the richest of rock art in East India, with more than 100 rock shelters with rock paintings and engravings. So early man, even 30,000 years ago, man had this sense of beautifying wherever he lived. So the caves in which he lived, he beautified. Geometric symbols, dots, and lines are found along with those of animals and human paintings and engravings dating from late Paleolithic age onwards. The cave-dwelling artists had sense of color, shapes, and forms. There are paintings which include figures of humans, animals, geometric shapes like squares and rectangles, wheels with spokes, various shapes, and dots in colors like white, yellow, blue, red, and black. So, not only they used color combinations but also were familiar with line and form, which are elements used in interior design. So, line and form are two basic elements which are used by interior designers because they create a lot of difference in the way the design, the furniture is designed, or the entire uh, ambience of the place looks. Bhimbetka. Life from early times to later periods, from hunting scenes to religious folk symbols, the subjects of rock art have been classified into different categories, such as human figures, different species of animals, scenes of hunting, battle, music and dance, rituals, and family. All these give us information about mythology, nature, decoration, and material culture. So material culture, like what they must have used and how they must have lived. That also we get an idea, and how like their family life or what were their activities. All these are depicted by way of these cave paintings. There are in all 2,330 human figures. They have been divided into various subgroups: man, woman, boy, girl, infant, anthropomorphic figures, hunter, riders on horses, elephants, bulls, soldiers, drummers, man with an axe, humans engaged in other activities, drinking, dancing, masked man, ritual performers, and image of Mother Goddess. There are also figures of pregnant women. So, like masked people wearing masks is depicted. So that means it was not just the decoration of the house, but they decorated themselves also, and they had weapons with which they created these various things, various like even the paintings. They must have used some form of a crude brush, some paints, and even for the masks, they must have had some tools. They were, of course, wooden, sharpened wood, chipped and shaped in various forms. So man had the sense right from the beginning of making tools, using them, and making his home beautiful. The compositions in Bhimbetka rock art are numerous. They comprise scenes of hunting, fighting, dancing, and family life. These paintings were made using three different techniques, indicating that art development with the development of humans. Sorry, mixing the color with a lot of water for it to be thin. So this is known as transparent technique. So this has been used by the cave dwellers. Then the second is mixing the pigment, possibly of several colors with water, which is known as opaque technique. So the pigment is mixed, and like many colors of hues and shades are created, and the color was applied, and then there were paintings done on it. So this acted as the base coat, applying the pigment directly on the wall as with a crayon. This is called the crayon technique. So this has this created the crayon technique was used to draw the figures. Both monochrome and dichrome paintings of early historic period are found. At some places, paintings include those of human figures and deer, geometric shapes like squares and rectangles, wheels with spokes, oval shapes with dots have been drawn. Deer, because deer were in abundance probably, so a lot of deer have been drawn. These are in red, blue, and black color. So not only they used color combinations, but also were familiar with line and form, which are elements used in interior design. And we can say that they had the desire to beautify their cave homes. Styles. So like which styles the Bhimbetka people used? The Bhimbetka rock paintings have been divided into three main styles. These have been further divided into many sub-styles. So representational or naturalistic, this is silhouetted, which means the outline is drawn and then the inside is filled with color. So like how children draw, first we teach children to draw the outline and then color it from inside. So this was a technique used by the people then, because art was in its primary stages. These are These are decorative, at times partially filled, outlined natural styles. Geometric approach, silhouetted, decorated, partially filled, outlined geometric styles. So the geometric patterns have been done in this style. So here we are not speaking about the figures of humans and animals, but it is the geometric designs which the people have used. Abstract approach, silhouetted, decorative, partially filled, outline styles. So these are two examples here. A famous historic period panel on top of a shelter which has soldiers. So here these are soldiers. Soldiers, and there is a person on a riding a horse, and all of them have weapons. So there are soldiers and various animals. Now the animals here include tigers, like tigers here, peacocks, other birds, the ones, scorpion, and snake. Here is a snake. There are numerous battle scenes.
Ma'am,
There are numerous battle scenes.
can I please? It seems you're showing something, but we are unable to see your screen.
Oh, okay.
You were describing some picture,
But
and
we can see here. We can
But
see it clear here.
we can see here. We can see it clear here.
It's visible. It's visible on our
It was problem to me also. So then please save first and then join again.
And then join again.
okay, thanks. Sorry for the inconvenience.
It's okay. There are numerous battle scenes at Bhimbetka and may include elephant and horse riders. So this is in the second picture. It is to the left of your screen, as well as soldiers armed with bow and arrows, lances, shields, and swords. Then this is another picture of soldiers and horse rider accompanied by drummers. So like there is a man on a horse, and there are other soldiers with bows and arrows, and then there is another one with a sword. Uh, there is one with a sword and a shield who's behind, almost to the end of the picture. This is like towards the left end of the picture, and there is another man with holding lances in his hand behind this person, and there are drummers just behind the horse rider. So like this was what we have heard about the the battlefield situation where the music also was played to encourage the soldiers to keep their morale high. So it seems that kind of a painting. Then another painting of two historic warriors presented inside what could be a cave or a tent. And this again seems to have some decoration on it. And there are still other people, but at the background. So these two people drawn, these figures are shown in this inside the structure. What could be a cave or a tent? Like now, with that we come to houses and cities of the Indus Valley civilization. So after a span of a lot of time, how houses and cities were developed. Like from cave dwellings, now we come to the houses and cities. Excavations have revealed parts of fortification walls, well-planned drainage system and houses, and also provision of water tanks and reservoirs for good water management. It has been revealed that many cities, Mohenjo-daro, Kalibangan, etc., had raised mounds with a fort or citadel, which could have been the residential area of the rich, would be on the west. Excuse me. And the lower town for the rest of the population to the east. So the rest of the population lived to the east of the town, while in the citadel or the fort, the rich people live, because like this fortified region ensured that the attacks would not really affect the people inside. It could be the attacks or even the natural calamities. Citadels and lower towns would be surrounded by high walls, had protective features like huge watchtowers, gates, and surrounding moat. Yeah, and I would like to mention one more thing. In the uh, planning of a city, planning drainage system is very essential. So like people would say, oh, drainage system, and how is it a part of interior designing? Well, definitely it is, because if a drain gets clogged, we know how difficult it gets for us to live for that period of time till the situation is not normalized. So drainage is very essential, not only for an individual house, for the entire city. The citadels and the lower towns would be surrounded by high walls, had protective features like huge watchtowers, gates, and surrounding moat. Harappan houses were of different sizes, had many rooms like kitchens with soak pits. These are equivalent to the sinks of today, where the sewage would, the clear sewage water pass out into the drains on the streets, while the solid material would settle down and that would be cleared later. There were bedrooms, storerooms, etc., a centrally located open courtyard. Some of the houses were double-storied with staircases leading to the above floor. The floors above also had toilets that had drains built inside the walls that ended just above the street drains. So they had the drain pipes were concealed. The floors were either tiled or plastered with bitumen, or houses of the poorer sections had beaten earth covered with cow dung plaster. All houses were built parallel to roads. So the city planning was done very thoughtfully, and no houses encroached on the roads. Also, the road corners would be rounded so that the heavy, because in those days bullock carts were the only means of transporting material. So because the cart would be heavy, it would get difficult if the corners were at right angle. It would get difficult for the cart to turn. So they had the corners rounded. There were manholes with covers present at regular intervals for cleaning. They emptied into brick channels which transported sewage water to be drained outside the city at some distance from its limits. The exterior of houses and other buildings were plain and without much decoration. So not much was done on the exteriors, and from the excavations from such a great period behind, not really much has remained, has survived. But like from whatever is available, we can get this information that it was the exteriors were quite plain. Stone was not used as a building material. Instead, burnt brick or sun-dried bricks were used, indicating the severity of rainfall in this region in ancient times. So, like the sunburnt bricks, sun-dried bricks or the burnt bricks helped in insulation and preventing water from seeping in and damaging the houses. Burnt bricks used in construction were uniform in dimension. The houses did not have exterior windows, probably for safety, but had an open courtyard in the center. So that is why the courtyard was provided in the center, so that enough air circulation would take place. These people had perfected the technique of water management. Collection and distribution of potable and bathing water was done. There were separate channels for freshwater, rainwater collection, and wastewater drainage. From the numerous reservoirs, cisterns, and wells, we can say they practiced rainwater harvesting. Many statues were found, like there's a famous statue of a dancing girl in bronze, and there is a stone sculpture of a bearded man. So these have been excavated. These suggest that artifacts may have been used to decorate houses. There have been found clay toys, seals, hair combs, hair beautification articles like clips and ornaments. All these indicate the importance of beautification to the people of the Indus Valley civilization. The exterior and interior walls were covered with plaster and often painted. The roofs of the homes were flat and made of wood. Although bricks were the standard building material, wood was also used in building houses. So it is not just bricks, but wood also was used. Their furniture and other aspects of interior design. Large earthen pots were used for storage. Also, deep recesses in the walls may have been fitted with wooden shelves and used for storage. So, like, these structures are still in use, and especially in the ancient palace, if we see any old palace or even old bungalows and old houses, they have these little corners in the wall, a little cutout areas there provided for keeping things, probably shelves, so it acts like a flushed-in unit, or sometimes even for lamps, they have these little structures made. So the walls were provided with stands for placing water jugs and other items. Openable large wooden boxes were used for storage purpose. The people of the Indus Valley civilization used furniture like beds and chairs. Some of the chairs had legs carved like a bull's legs. So how we come to know, because wooden furniture surely has not survived because wood is a perishable material. So small models of all these things have been excavated, and because of that we come to know about all these structures. So the clay models of couches have been found. Raised kitchen platforms with facility for fuel storage were also used by the people. These clay models could have been the toys for the children of those days, as many other toys have been excavated. So storage was an important part of the houses of the Indus Valley people. They stored their food grains as well as they stored fuel. So that speaks about their thoughtfulness and future planning. Now, coming to the period of the Vedic and the post-Vedic ages, ancient references of the art of construction and decoration of buildings in Vedic and post-Vedic period. The Vedas are the earliest literature which tells us about the towns in ancient India. Towns and cities were surrounded by protective walls or wooden railings. Majority of the buildings inside these fortified cities were constructed entirely from wood. Timber was abundant and was the chief building material. As the land was covered with mahavanas, that is large dense forests, so these mahavanas provided all the timber that the people needed, and timber making houses from timber was better than just mud. And one more reason was that wood stone was not permitted in this period. In the Vedic period, there are mentions that stone was not prescribed as a building material, especially for houses. The epics also present beautiful picturization of these ancient cities. The craftsmanship reached very high standards because these structures had carvings. The wooden structures had a lot of carving work, and very beautifully done structures were there. So from that we come to know that the workmanship was of a very high quality. From the Rig Veda, we come to know that the divine architect Vishwakarma thought of using wood for designing the universe. The land on which the people lived was called Janapada, which can be understood as a combination of the words Jana, meaning people, and Pada in Sanskrit language means foot. Thus, Janapada means land on which people tread or walk on. So, land on which people have kept their foot. That is like they walk on. So, the place where the tribe resided was called as Grama, and the larger form of Gram was called as Janapada. With passage of time, Janapadas grew large and powerful, and were now called Mahajanapadas. So as these Janapadas waged war against each other, and that is how, like, especially the Aryan community had a lot of cattle. So in the war, the wealth was basically the cattle were taken from one Janapada. The losing Janapada's cattle would be taken, and that would increase the wealth of the winning Janapada. So, and as time passed, the population also increased. So the Janapadas expanded, and they were now known as Mahajanapadas. References are also found in Buddhist literature of buildings constructed on the basis of Vastu Shastra. The Jatakas contain reference to individual buildings. Lord Buddha is said to have delivered discourses on architecture and even told his disciples that supervising the construction of a building was one of the duties of the Sangha, which is the English word for Sangha is order. So the order of the monks. Many Puranas such as Skanda Puran, Agni Puran, Matsya Puran, Narad Puran, Vayu Puran, Brahmanda Puran, and Linga Puran have many chapters which deals on Vastu Shastra, the ancient Indian art of building, construction and decoration. In the Mahabharata, reference is made of a number of houses that were built for the kings who were invited to Indraprastha for the Rajsuya Yajna of King Yudhishthir. Sage Vyas says that those houses were as high as the peaks of Kailash mountain, perhaps meaning that they stood tall and majestic. So like tall as the Kailash. So it was a way of describing things and like speaking in a little exaggerated way, but these houses, these palaces were really very, very tall. Like as we continue with our sessions, a few other things will be revealed. So like with all the same reference, you might even come across the same thing somewhere ahead. The houses were free from obstruction, had compounds with high walls. The doors were of uniform height and inlaid with numerous metal ornamentations and precious stones. And since there was abundance of wealth, the a lot of the jewels and precious metals were also used in beautifying the places. Houses during Vedic period. Originally, the early Vedic people, being pastoral, always traveled in search of fresh pastures. For the search of pastures, they settled in the area of 7 rivers in northwest India, that is the Saptasindhu region. The word Sadas means a dwelling or an assembly. Sadanam means a house. It also means a palace, mansion, or we come to know that these people constructed assembly halls too. And there is another reference, Sadas also means an assembly hall. So like these, there are a lot of references in the Vedas which speak about, there are verses which have these words mentioned in them. So from that we come to know that there were assembly halls also. Both Sadas and Sadanam are derived from the Sanskrit root Sad, which means to live, remain, or reside. Other words used for house were Gruha, Agra or Agrashal, Veshaman, Avasthan. Avasthan is a place where the harness from the horse is removed. So there was surely a place where horses were kept, or if there is a place to remove the harness. So the horses also had a stables, certain area for the horses to rest. Some families who were rich lived in wooden houses. Such houses comprised of rooms for various purposes. There were rooms like a hall, bedrooms, rooms for women, for worship, where the Yajna Bhumi was located, and spacious courtyards. Now, during the Vedic period, Yajna was a very essential and very important part of the life of the people, and houses had Yajna Bhumis for their daily practices, their daily worship. Since there was no idol worship, so the Yajna Bhumi was a sacred place, and that also was had a room, a special area allotted in the house. The poorest section of society lived in huts made from straw or strips of wood matted together and plastered with mud, which gave strength and provided insulation. Bamboo, straw bundles, ropes were also used in construction. There were structures built for both residences and for conducting rituals. Udumbar wood pillar was erected in the middle of the structure, as the Vedic Aryans believed the Udumbar tree to be life giver and having life sap, formed the center of all constructed structures, be it residential or for sacrifices. This central pillar was an important part as it was believed to be symbolic representation of the axis mundi, that is, that it connects the house to the navel of the earth. And this was a concept of the fetus connected to the mother's womb, which nourishes the fetus. The earth is addressed and worshipped as mother. So the earth, who is the mother of all living creatures, she nourishes us all and she takes care of us all. So she is considered as a mother, and that concept was used by the Vedic people. Some of the sadas served as shelters for the sacrifice performing priests. These shelters too had construction specifications as mentioned in various sutras and samhitas, which are some formulae and specifications, and in other various texts. These texts tell us about the hymns recited during the tying and the untying of huts. So there were certain, the hymns played a very important part in the lives, apart from the sacrifices, apart from the daily rituals. The hymns formed a part of the entire day. There are various hymns based on the construction of the houses, and even like for tying and untying, there were certain hymns to be recited. There were certain methods adopted for the selection of a site for construction of a house. A lot of care was taken in this respect. After all, the well-being of the people living in it depended on the vastu, which is the house. Water flow played a key role in this, considering the amount of rainfall India receives. The base of any house or even a hut had to be firm for it to survive the harsh weather conditions. A specific number of foundation holes were dug. These were instructed to be knee deep in order to drain off the water efficiently. So the better the foundation, the more long lasting the house will be. So the posts, the wooden posts were first, the holes were dug and these posts were erected in them. So either they were put directly, or the posts were inserted directly in the holes, or for better insulation, for better protection from the water, the stone blocks were placed inside, and then the pillars, which were made of Udumbar wood, were placed. So either the Udumbar wood posts were placed directly, or first a stone block was placed over which the post was placed. The posts in the southern direction were inserted first, and later those to the north were placed. The middle beam or the post had two lintels placed above it at its center. These houses were not tiny and dingy as one might assume them to be. So these were very spacious houses. Even the houses of the poor were not very tiny huts. They were spacious. Though the building material was different. It was not purely wood. So, but yet the houses were quite big and spacious. They had, because again the lifestyle was same. There was not much of a difference in the daily routines of the people. So the houses were designed almost similar, and all were based on principles, and there were fixed rules and norms which the people followed. And that was for the betterment of the people, because there is in Ayurveda also, like the lifestyle helps us to achieve health, a better health. So similarly, the construction also was according to these specifications, and all our sciences are interrelated, and they are interdependent. The main entrance door was preferably to the east, or it could be to the south or north, but never to the west. Doors had door fasteners known as Dirapidhana, the door panels, which were two in number. So there were never single panel doors. There were always two panels to the door. Were called kapat or putter. Sorry, and the bolt was called Dwarakantak or Kalika. The various rooms, like the room for the ladies of the house, the bedrooms, the meeting room for the master of the house, the kitchen, and the prayer room, were positioned between the posts as specified in texts. The roof was thatched. It was better if a house had a platform running along the outer face of all sides of the house. The bathing hut was outside and was an enclosure with mats. So since the platform, it was better to have the platform, because that again, because our country has very severe rains, so the house, the base should not get damaged. So that is why the platform provided protection. It acted like an embankment, a protective wall. So like that has that now we don't have. It's like if it is an individual house, there are verandas, but in flats we don't have the system now. But like this acted as the plinth or the a part of a protective embankment along the house. So that is why the platform running all from around all the sides of the house was essential, and it was better to have one. Since the above description is of the house of wealthy people, there was also a structure designed to keep two chariots. The essential feature for all plots was a wooden compound of wooden posts. So like the all the plots had wooden compounds, and this was probably for the safety of the people, and so that no encroachment takes place, and life is lived in a very disciplined manner. Ancient palaces. Palaces were known as Prasad, Raj Bhavan, Raj Niva, uh, Nivesan, Rajgruha, Antapur, etc. In the Purana, the word Prasad is generally used for palace. The palaces of kings of ancient times have not survived the tests of time. This is not because they were primitive structures or made from weak material. This is evident from remains obtained from the excavations carried out at various locations. Some of the pillars of Chandragupta Maurya's palace, which was in existence more than 2000 years ago, the remains of the Vijayanagar palace at Hampi, and many more such ancient structures are evidence of this. Some beautiful classic artwork in the form of highly polished mirror finished articles in sandstone and beautiful works in terracotta found in the Mauryan period can be seen in the museum at Patna. The sites of the royal residences were lost due to political disturbances and wars, extinction of various dynasties, or natural calamities. Many of them were looted and plundered and were demolished. These are the reasons why we do not have the fortune to see them. But due to the vastness of our traditional literary work, we find references of various palaces in works such as Valmiki Ramayana, Pana's Harsha Charita, and Kadambari, and many other famous works. So whatever remains are still available. From that we can assume how beautiful, and we get this idea of how beautiful the palace must be when it was standing and when it was in its prime. Like, and since these structures have survived for so many years, for more around 2000 years or even more, so from that we can say, like, how the construction material must have been used, and how the workmanship must have been, and how the planning was. How were these palaces? A palace was a symbol of power, and its structure was a representation of the king's might. So the more powerful the king, the more territory he had, and the more grand his palace was, the more richly decorated it was. Palaces were sprawling structures with many subsidiary buildings. They were many storied buildings with many pillars and were crowned with domes. Now, these the pillars, there is a mention of many pillars being there because these were not low buildings with just a floor high or one or two stories high, but there were many. There are mentions of vimanas which are more than 7-story high. So for such a structure, a lot of pillars have to be erected at the ground floor level, and the subsequent floors also. So that is why there is a mention of many pillars being there in these palaces. There are references of a palace with 1,000 columns in the Ramayana. The relief work on panels at Sanchi, Parhat, Amravati have some palaces and palace interiors on them. These are also very informative about the residences of the kings and the members of the royal family. Also, I'd like to mention here about the paintings in the caves. The Ajanta caves paintings also have a lot of these pictures. paintings of the palaces and palace scenes, which from which we come to know a lot. And not just that, about the palaces, it has a lot of furniture also. All these structures tell us about the furniture items also. Moreover, since the palaces being the residence of the king, who was the head of the judicial system of the kingdom, the judicial responsibilities were conducted from the palace through his royal court. So apart from having domestic activities, it was also the center for judicial activities. In addition, the king's residence was the largest. Many other buildings were designed around the palace. Other residences were in diminishing dimensions to it. So the size of the residences reduced. The area occupied by a particular person and his family reduced according to his designation. The biggest house, the biggest area was allotted for the king's palace, and then accordingly, in reducing order, the sizes became lesser. Like the residence of the Yuvraj was smaller in size to that of the king's palace. Smaller than this were the palaces of the younger princes. So the king's palace then was the Yuvraj's palace, which was smaller than the king's, and then the younger princes. Followed in the reducing size of the houses of commander-in-chief, prime minister's house, the houses of other ministers, the Raj Purohit, astrologer, Vaidya, ambassadors, artists, and then in reducing sizes were the houses of the other workers as per rank. And it is only, I've mentioned only of these people because these were immediately around the palace and they worked for the palace premises. And the ambassadors and the ministers and even the Raj Purohit, the Vaidya, the astrologer had to be around the king because everything was done according to time. There were certain muhurats, and even when the king needed any medical attention, the Vaidya should be around. So that is why all these people's houses were immediately around the palace. The locations of various structures in and around the king's palace. The palaces were designed following strict specifications of various texts related to Vastu Shastra. The day and the time of commencement of work was calculated by the astrologer and the Raj Purohit. These rules were followed by all the people, rich or poor, powerful or ordinary. The royal kitchen. So now the specifications were the positioning of the basic plan of the palace. The royal kitchen should be to the southeast and must have good ventilation. To the northeast, there would be a room to store perfumes and flowers. The storeroom was in the north direction, the cowshed in the northwest. There were bathrooms in the west direction, constructed with windows. So for the air circulation of the bathroom, there were windows. A separate room for storing sacrificial twigs, fuel, etc. would be to the southwest. Another special room for the guests built in the south. It would be designed with care and beauty. Because the guests were again from the royal family or from some other kingdom who had come for some business with the king, some official matters. So they also had a high position. So where they were entertained, where they lived while they had come to visit the king. So the guest room also was very beautifully decorated. In this room, there was furniture like beds, seats, dressing table, water pots, arrangement for lighting up the room when darkness set in. Because these were times when there was no electricity. So the lamps, that is the diyas, were the only source of light. All the special rooms would be decorated with fresco paintings, tapestry, beautiful sculpture, and pottery, etc. So fresco paintings are the paintings on the wall. Tapestry is done with weaving a cloth with different colors so that the design, even a scene, is depicted with the help of different colors woven as a cloth, and then that is framed or it's like hung up. Special attention was given to the color schemes, curtains and drapes, and the perfumes and scents to create a pleasant atmosphere. The fixtures and arrangements for lamps was provided. The palace, after all, spoke of the creativity of the maker. It was the representation of grandeur and majesty of the king. So the artists and the artisans working for the palace for construction and the maintenance of the palace were very skilled. We come to know from all these various factors about the palaces. Location of the palace. All Shilpa texts unanimously state that the palace must be located in the heart of the city, that is centrally located. In the opinion of Chanakya, palace has to be constructed at the center of the fortified city. He prescribes the palace must occupy 1/9 of the total area of the fortified city or town and be positioned slightly to the north. He also specified that the king's palace must be constructed on firm ground to withstand forces causing weakening of structure. This was it was to face north or to the east. That is, the entrance of the palace should be either to the north or to the east. Because the northeast is the location of is the position where the gods are believed to reside in any Vastu. The Puranic mentions the palace was constructed on a square plot with a grid of 64 squares. In the Matsya Puran, it is stated that the king's palace should be the most beautiful structure surrounded by greenery provided by grasslawns and trees. There must be residences of princes and a large number of other royal and brave courtiers, since the well-being of the king is the well-being of the entire kingdom. The palace should have an atmosphere of happiness. It must be surrounded by the fragrant flowers and sweet fruit orchards. This brings in the concept of landscape designing in use since ancient times. So it tells about how the gardens were also very well manicured and very presentable, and they added to the atmosphere of happiness and like the well-being. If the king is happy, then if any person is happy, uh, he or she performs better. So similar case with the king. If the happiness of the king was ensured, and even the safety, there are lots of other aspects which, because of time constraint, I could not add to this. But there are a lot of mentions of it in Kautilya's Arthashastra, which gives elaborate explanations of how a palace should be. Like the king's bedroom should have a, a secret door for him to escape if there were any attacks, and there was tunnels and passages which helped the king to escape to a safe location. So that also added to the part of interior designing and how the planning and the decoration was done so that these doors were concealed. And a lot of other aspects like the fortification also had many layers. There were many different walls, and there are specifications about how much distance there must be, how deep the moats should be, how wide, how deep. All this is mentioned in the Arthashastra. The Matsya Puran also states that the palace of the king must be beautiful, elegant, a lofty structure, well supplied with water. Treasury should be to the southern part of the palace. Beyond this, further south should be the elephant yard with its entrance to the east or the north. The weaponry should be to the southeast. The Raj Purohits, that is the royal priest's house, must be near the king's palace and to its left side. So this was again according to the principles of construction that all these places were located. Chandragupta Maurya's palace. According to L.A. Waddell, the mound at village Kumhar near present Patna could be the location of the Mauryan palace. Excavations carried out in 1912 and till 1915 at this place have exposed the basement of a royal palace or hall supported on an aisle of pillars. So it is a passage, an aisle is a passage which, and this particular passage which had other rooms probably which opened into the passage. So it has pillars on both the sides running parallel to each face. To the superstructure was made of timber, which probably burned down in later times because it was a wooden palace. It was burned down later, and the floods of the Ganga buried its remains in the soil. So this flooding of the Ganga and the burial of the structure, the remains of the structure, has in a way helped to preserve this, and because of that, are now able to understand at least a part of how the palace was, apart from the books and the texts which mention and which describe Chandragupta Maurya's palace. Megasthenes tells us that the king lived in luxury and splendor. The king's palace was built in the middle of a very big and beautiful park. The palace was beautified by gilded pillars, artificial fish ponds, and shady avenues. He admired this palace more than the Persian palaces. He further tells that the pillars of the palace were clasped all round with vines and climbing plants embossed in gold and adorned with most exquisite silver figures of various birds. So there were birds. The birds were decorated on the pillars. The carvings of the birds were decorated with silver, and the greenery around was shown with the use of gold. There were a number of apartments for the king, members of his family, bodyguards and archers, kinsmen and ministers, and the armed soldiers. Centuries after, the Chinese traveler Fa Hing saw the Mauryan palace in excellent condition and beauty and could not believe that it was built by human beings. He wrote, "The king's palace in the city with its various halls, all built by spirits." So he thought that it was built by supernatural elements and by spirits who piled up stones, constructed walls and gates, carved, designed, engraved, and inlaid. So no human could fashion it with such perfection, is still in existence. That speaks about how grand and how beautiful the palace of Chandragupta Maurya must have been. But during the visit of Yunsan to Patliputra, Chandragupta's palace was burned down and deserted. The capital of the Mauryan Empire, Patliputra, was the center of the imperial administration. It was built at the confluence of the two rivers, the Ganga and the Son. Patliputra was a large fortified city, 14.72 kilometers in length and 2.72 kilometers in breadth. It was in shape of a parallelogram. So it was designed like a parallelogram in shape and had a wooden wall around it, which was a protective wall with loopholes for shooting arrows during enemy attacks. It had a ditch in front for defense of the entire fortified city. This ditch, which encompassed it all around, was 1.82.8 meters, which is 600 feet in breadth, and 13.7 meters, which is 44 feet in depth. And the wall had 570 towers, and the city had 64 gates. So that speaks about how enormous the city was and how the traffic inside into the city and out of it was, how it must have been, and how the activities must have been in the city. The capital, being the headquarters of the entire central government, had a special administration of its own. The Greek ambassador, Megasthenes, who spent his time in Chandragupta Maurya's kingdom, has left this account. The Arthashastra of Kautilya, or also known as Chanakya, gives many specifications, strategic planning, and about the general structure and security measures of a palace and the entire city. As I earlier mentioned, in the Arthashastra, a lot is mentioned, a lot is given. So these are pictures, some pictures of the palace of Chandragupta Maurya, how it must have been. There are pictures and there is a carvings of the palace. King Harshavardhan's palace. Banabhatta, in his literary work Harsha Charita, has described the activities at the royal household. This was a depiction of the preparations during Harsha's sister Rajshree's wedding. He describes that the palace was alive with celebration for the event. It is the event of her wedding, which was a very grand occasion, and a lot of preparations were done. To renovate and decorate the palace, various workmen had been employed. Among these were skilled artisans, leather workers, carpenters, goldsmiths, plasterers, and many more. These skilled workers were employed to decorate the palace with figures and statues of clay, those carved out of wood and stone. Ornamentation was done on these sculptures. Creation of scented ponds, beautiful paintings, and various other types of ornamental work was done to add more beauty and grace to Harsha's palace. The palace exhibited gorgeous textures of many types on all sides. It looked like a myriad of rainbows for everywhere. There were textiles of linen, cotton, bark, silk, muslin, and various types of silk. Through his literature compositions, Banabhat has described the various parts of the palace of Harsha. He has mentioned about Skandavar, which is the outermost section of a palace where elephants, horses, and a section of the army was waiting. He has spoken about Dhaval Gruha, Rajakula, Gruhodhyan, which is the garden around the house, around the palace, Vyayam Bhumi, Snana Gruha, Ahara Mandap, etc. Thank you. With this, we come to the end of today's session.
Thank you, thanks a lot. Actually, it's a really wonderful journey. हम लोग पढ़ते तो बहुत है और उसके बारे में सुनते भी बहुत है, मगर ये जब हम सुनना चाहते हैं यानी वो देखना चाहते हैं, जब बड़ी मुश्किल हो जाती है. Being as a history student, I can understand this. It's your hard work. और कई बार ऐसा होता है कि कुछ लोगों को ऐसा लगता है, मैं हमेशा ऐसा कहता हूँ कि पीपीटी, हम भी जो पीपीटी दिखाते हैं उसमें हम कंप्लीट डाटा, ये मेरा पहले से जब से मैं सिखाता हूँ तब से मेरी भी आदत है, कंप्लीट डाटा वहां रखते हैं. मुझे कई बार इंस्ट्रक्शन दी गई थी कि आप जो है वहां सिर्फ पॉइंट रखिए और डाटा जो है आपके पास रखिए और जो है सिर्फ पॉइंट वहां रहेंगे और पूरा जो है आप यहाँ से ये करें. बट जैसा कि हम सब कुछ देना चाहते हैं तो हम सब कुछ उसमें रखते हैं ताकि वो स्क्रीनशॉट से भी कई लोग उसे बाद में भी पढ़ सकते हैं. सो ये भी एक अपना अपना अलग स्टाइल है, मगर कुछ लोगों को उस तरह से भी लगता है हाउ कैन वी रीड, वो क्यों सिर्फ पढ़ रहे हैं, उसको कैसे कर रहे हैं. और मगर ये बात है कि हम नोट्स के साथ जो फोटोग्राफ, जो विजुअलाइजेशन, ये सबसे समझने की जो है वो प्रयास करते रहे. यहाँ कुछ सवाल पूछे गए थे चैट बॉक्स में जिसके जवाब देने की हमने कोशिश की है. और यहाँ सिंधु जगन्नाथ जी भी है जो इस सब्जेक्ट की मास्टर है, उन्होंने भी कुछ सवालों के बहुत अच्छे जवाब एंड कुछ कमेंट भी बहुत अच्छे उन्होंने लिखे हैं. सो विक्रम भारद्वाज जी ने एक क्लास में एक सवाल पूछा है, कैन यू प्लीज शेयर सम मोर सोर्सेस फ्रॉम वेयर वी कैन गेट दीज डिटेल्स रिगार्डिंग द मौर्यन पैलेस. यस, डेफिनेटली वी विल शेयर इट. इसके बारे में हमारे पास कुछ जानकारी है, कुछ बुक्स और कुछ इसके इंफॉर्मेशन है, वो भी हम शेयर करेंगे. और कुछ रेफरेंस सोर्स जो है उसके बारे में भी हम हमारे ग्रुप में भी इसके शेयर करेंगे. सो थैंक यू, थैंक्स अ लॉट. एंड अगर किसी के कुछ सवाल हो तो आप पूछ सकते हैं, या तो चैट बॉक्स में उससे लिखते जाइए ताकि वो आसान हो जाएगा. क्योंकि आप जब लिखते हैं यहाँ प्रमिला मित्रा जी ने लिखा है, यस एक्सेलेंट, सो फैसिनेटिंग, थैंक यू मैडम, थैंक यू, थैंक्स अ लॉट जी। यस विक्रम जी,
नमस्कार सर।
Sir, I
नमस्कार
have a
सर,
question.
नमस्कार मैम। एक छोटा सा क्वेश्चन है। आपने एक जगह अडुम्बर वुड की बात पुट फॉरवर्ड की कि द स्ट्रक्चर वर कंस्ट्रक्टेड बाय अडुम्बर वुड। ये वुड कौन सी है? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल आई वांट टू नो दिस, एंड इज देयर एनी रिलेशन, बिकॉज व्हेन वी स्टडी द हिस्ट्री ऑफ हिमाचल वी हैव अ स्टेट फर्दर व्हिच वाज नोन एज अडुम्बर स्टेट. इट वाज अर्लियर, वेरी अर्ली in the ancient time. Whether there is any relation between Udumbar wood and Udumbar state, further if you can tell me, that it would be much better for me, ma'am.
Udumbar wood is it is known as Audumbar tree because like since I am from Maharashtra, I know this thing, like the stan of Datta Guru is under the Audumbar tree, which is very auspicious. And
फाइकस रेसमोसा उसका जो नाम है, उसको आप अगर गूगल में
Thank you,
जस्ट
sir.
सर्च करेंगे तो आपको वो जानकारी मिलेगी। मैं यहाँ स्पेलिंग लिखता हूँ चैट बॉक्स में ताकि आपको समझने में आसानी हो जाएगी विक्रम जी।
Thanks a lot.
यस, मोस्ट वेलकम। और दिव्या जी कुछ पूछना है? हाँ
हाँ जी, thank you Bhujang ji. Suchita ma'am, sorry. First
Yeah.
of all, thank you so much for such a wonderful presentation.
Thank
I don't
you.
know, while you were talking, it was, you know, I could imagine the pictorial representation of what you had put in the PPT in my head. It was such a beautiful presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have 3 questions.
Yeah.
My first question is, we have when you were talking about ancient cave shelters in India initially, right?
Yes.
So you were talking about 3 styles of representation, right? The naturalistic, geometric, and abstractic approach, and
Yeah.
also about the mixing color, the transparent, opaque, and crayon technique. Now, I got a doubt while listening to that because those days, very, very like 10,000, 30,000 years ago, like you mentioned, we did not have language. Humans did not have
No,
language,
this is
or
yeah.
there
Sorry.
was lipi, right? There was no
Yes.
lipi. So
No.
how can we differentiate this kind of figurines like that was the for an interior decoration purpose of their cave shelters, or they were actually trying to communicate something through pictures? Because we know that before language developed, those kind of humans used to communicate through pictures like this on
Pictures.
their caves. So how do we
Yes.
differentiate whether they are trying to communicate or it's just with the decoration purpose, or is it both? That is my first question.
That is a little confusing question, ma'am. But like I feel it is from my perspective, it is they were trying to. It was we can say it's a combination of both because they have used colors, different colors. So they were they had a sense of beauty, and they did not just use like. Coal or something because they burned fire, so they could have, if it was for the purpose of just communication, then they would have just used one, like they would have used lime or some light shade on the stone walls. But since they used various colors, we can say they wanted to add beauty to the place where they lived. So that is why, like, I feel it is a part of the interior decoration also, because every person wants a beautiful surrounding. So even these people definitely had this sense of beauty. So that is why. Otherwise, if it was just the script, then it would have been only in one particular color, like various places, but different colors. But at that location, only one color would be used. They wouldn't use so many colors as
True,
what we've
true.
seen. Yeah.
Very true. Okay, thank you for that. And
Thank
my
you.
second question is about the Bimbikta art form.
Yeah.
Where are these found? Is it generally all over the India? It is an art form or the painting, right? You said.
Yeah.
Is it found in particularly in some today's geographical area of India, or in general can be found everywhere?
No, Bhimbetka is a place in Madhya Pradesh, but the style now it is like the present generations have named it as the Bhimbetka style because this is uniform throughout India. So it is like the development, whatever happens, even if we speak of interior decoration or interior designing or any other aspect, we notice that there are like-minded people all over the world. So at the same time, different people are developing certain things at the same time. In those days, probably they did not, because it was
Very true, because the same types of paintings now we get in Maharashtra, which called as the Katal Chitre. It means the Guha Chitra, and some in Ratnagiri district particularly, which called as petroglyphs also. So simultaneously it was there, which long dated back from 10,000 to 7,000 BC also. सो इस तरह का रिसर्च अभी चल रहा है और कुछ ऐसे पेंटिंग्स पाए गए हैं. सो ये ऐसा कह सकते हैं कि हम भारत में अलग अलग जगह पर इस तरह का वर्क हो रहा था, बस फाइंड आउट करना और लोगों के सामने लाना, ये जो प्रक्रिया है वो धीरे धीरे चल रही है, ऐसा हम कह सकेंगे.
अच्छा, okay, thank you. My last question, we were talking about the constructions during Vedic period, the house constructions or generally any constructions, and you said the water was a very important element those days also. So my question is, where were they were drainage systems in those days also, so where were they sending this used water, like the sewage water, where was it going? Because you already mentioned in the presentation that it was far away from the city, but was it going to rivers is my question, because today everything is going to rivers and thereby to the oceans. And I remember reading somewhere that this was because we started copying what the Britishers did in India. Before Britishers came, it was not like that. Is it true? I want to know, one. And then during Vedic period, where were all these water going, the used water basically? That is my question, ma'am.
Like they did not definitely send the wastewater in the rivers, because rivers have always been very sacred to us, and it is not just the religious aspect, but our our ancestors were very scientifically developed, so they had I would say more knowledge than what the sciences we learn now. If we like read a lot of these ancient texts, there are such fascinating, amazing examples, amazing details, which even baffle the present day scientists. Many of the ancient existing systems in those days have not been understood by the present people, and then that is why it is taken as myth, or it's like it's a hoax and it's all lies, but that is not true. It's like it's always been in existence.
There is also find out the underground water storages in if you see in Lothal, जो रिसर्च अब तक इसके बारे में किया गया है, तो लगभग वहां पर कुछ जगह पर 1.5 मीटर से 2 मीटर तक डेप्थ में, जैसे हम सोकपीट बनाते हैं आजकल, तो उस तरह से बनाए गए भी वो फाइंड आउट किए गए हैं लोथल केस में. सो लाइक दैट. और कुछ जगह पर वाटर चैनल बनाए गए हैं, यानी जैसे आपने पूछा, जैसे हम आजकल ड्रेनेज सिस्टम करते हैं, बट इट इज पैरेलल टू द रिवर्स. अगर कहीं रिवर भी है मगर उसमें ये पानी मिक्स ना हो जाए, तो कुछ डिस्टेंस छोड़ करके उसके बाजू में, इफ इट इज नियर द रिवर, क्योंकि बहुत सारी बस्तियां तो नदियों के किनारे थी, और जो शहर का जो उतार होता था, यानी पानी जिस तरफ चला जाए, मगर उसको एक चैनलाइज करके ठीक से, बट ये वाटर जो है वो रिवर में ना मिल पाए, इस तरह से उसे बनाया गया था. ऐसे कुछ अवशेष जो है वो लोथल में मिले हुए हैं. इसके बारे में और भी सही मायने में आपने जो पूछा है, बहुत अच्छा सवाल है कि ड्रेनेज सिस्टम का लास्ट में क्या होता है, और ज्यादा इसमें जो है ये इंटरेस्टिंग टॉपिक है, हम सर्च करना बहुत आवश्यक है. थैंक यू नाइस क्वेश्चन.
थैंक यू सर. थैंक यू मैम.
थैंक यू.
यहाँ एक सवाल जो है पराग मिलवंकी जी ने पूछा है. थैंक यू फॉर द विविड. soak pits are important source of groundwater. Till what age were soak pits were made? When were they stopped being made? Now that the concrete roads and gutters imperial groundwater. अगर वैसे देखा जाए तो soak pit बनाने की परंपरा जो है हम मिडिवल पीरियड में भी देखते हैं, मराठा पीरियड में, 17th 18th सेंचुरी में, ब्रिटिश पीरियड में भी देखते हैं, बट उसका सीक्वेंसली ऐसा कहीं पर वो लिखा गया है ओनली अबाउट दिस टॉपिक, ऐसा कभी अभी तक तो मैंने नहीं पढ़ा है. हो सकता है शायद, बट जो हमने देखा है तो इसमें 18th 19th सेंचुरी के भी इसके बारे में प्रूफ्स है. और आफ्टर इंडिपेंडेंस क्या हुआ उसके बारे में ज्यादा पता नहीं, बट हमारे यहाँ पे अगर जलगांव डिस्ट्रिक्ट की मैं बात करूं तो लगभग 36 इयर्स बैक जो है ये बनाने की परंपरा यहाँ शुरू हुई थी, इसके प्रमाण है। यहाँ मेधा दुबे जी ने एक सवाल पूछा है, आई वुड लाइक टू आस्क हाउ कैन वी से द पेंटिंग्स ऑफ भीमबेटका डिपिक्टेड mythological figures because I guess there is a huge gap in between the Stone Age and Vedic age. हाँ बट सही है, yes.
This is like these paintings are based over a long period of time. It is these are not of one particular period. As progress, probably other, like, you know, certain settlements were there, then some other people occupied these, and or the same people, their next generations, they developed more skills, and they used better techniques. So that is how it is.
इसके बारे में वाकनकर जी ने भी काफी कुछ लिखा है, अगर हम पढ़ेंगे, और मैथोलॉजिकल के इसके बारे में, ये भीमबेटका और ये बाकी इसके बारे में, और एक किताब मेरे पास थी, अभी मुझे उसका नाम ठीक से याद नहीं, बट जैसे याद आ जाएगा, मैं हो सके तो उसका पीडीएफ कॉपी भी शायद मेरे पास है, मैं शेयर करूंगा, उसे हम डिटेल में पढ़े। मेधा दुबे जी अभी आजकल जो है नर्मदा वैली कल्चर पे बहुत अच्छा कार्य कर रही है। इन्होंने भी हमारे यहाँ संडे का एक सेशन जो है जिसमें उन्होंने कल्चुरी डायनास्टी और उसके बारे में हमें मार्गदर्शन किया था, सो थैंक यू, वो भी हमारे साथ है। और या
सर मैं इसमें कुछ ऐड करना चाहूंगी। See, like mythology is like, we feel it mythology, but for them it was religion. They were living at that particular time, and they had certain beliefs and practices which were normal to them. But for us, we find that this is like something strange, and we place it as mythology, because basically Indian mythology is considered as itihas. It is not myths, as how some people interpret it. It's not fake. It is a part of our history. So mythology, Indian mythology, it is considered, it is itihas and not fake. So it's like the myths goes that way.
हाँ सही बात है। अब अगर ऐसे देखा जाए तो भीमबेटका का हम प्री हिस्ट्री से लेकर पढ़ते हैं मिडिवल पीरियड तक, इसका एक बहुत लंबा जर्नी है। और मैंने जैसे कहा कि मैं इसके कुछ पीडीएफ हमारे आपके साथ शेयर करूंगा, हमारे ग्रुप में शेयर करूंगा, ताकि हम ज्यादा डिटेल में और इसकी जानकारी ले सकेंगे। सो हियर आई एम थैंकफुल टू ऑल ऑफ यू एंड पर्टिकुलरली सुचिता मैम। आई एम वेरी सॉरी, इट्स टू लॉन्ग टाइम, बहुत ज्यादा समय भी हो चुका है, इसके लिए मैं क्षमा मांगता हूँ। नहीं, मुझे आपकी क्षमा मांगनी चाहिए। सो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आप सभी का। और यहाँ सिंधु जी ने लिखा है, रिसेंट स्टडीज हैव साइंटिफिक प्रूफ ऑफ आवर इतिहास लाइक मैम से। यस, सही बात है। सो थैंक यू, थैंक्स अ लॉट टू ऑल ऑफ यू अगेन, एंड नाउ वी विल स्टॉप आवर टुडे सेशन। सो प्लीज गिव मी परमिशन सुचिता जी। यस,
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.